I'm Jeff Denman, consultant forester here in Arkansas. Uh, Got out of Monticello and did about 3 years working for Forestry Consulting Services Company. And then got into wildlife business. I worked for public wildlife agencies doing forest management for wildlife for about 35 years. Then about the last 20 years, I've done consulting for hunting clubs and families. When the government goes into a shutdown, you got to figure out a way to pay the bills. So I started working weekends and holidays. And then got retired about 6 years ago and said I just work Thursdays, but I'm working a few more days than that. I work for landowners and I try to look after their best interests. Help them find out what's their objectives. And then I want to help them achieve those objectives. And almost invariably, all these landowners I deal with, their number one objective is wildlife habitat, their recreational lands. Way on down the line, it's occasional income because everybody likes to have some fun money. And if landowners can get more income from their forest, it keeps it forest. And so that's my interest, helping these landowners keep the forest as forest, because forest is also habitat. My personal interest is I'm a duck head. I'm from Stuttgart, and I like to have the ducks in the woods. So I've got my own motivations. You know, and for habitat management, we all probably know I work on a publication about DFC, the desired forest conditions for wildlife. Published in 2007, and we're undergoing a revision update with Keith, the Mississippi Valley Joint Venture. So if you got any questions about that, give me a shout. I can talk about it for days. We're talking with landowners. The carbon market's a source for additional income. They already get income from periodic timber sales. Some of them lease out their hunting rights or portion of their hunting rights. So here's another income opportunity. And the carbon program developers, they're all brokers. They're the ones in between the landowners that produce the carbon credit and then the carbon credit buyers. So we're going to keep looking at all those and help see what fits with the landowners. We've known about some of the carbon programs, 125-year contracts and 40, 50-year contracts, and now for 1-year contracts. And they're becoming more and more available. So when I talk to landowners, when I tell them this is a 1-year commitment, that's certainly easier for them to understand than signing up multiple generations for a century. And landowners, most of these landowners are in some kind of business. They understand a commodity. They can understand a ton of carbon stored in wood. We convert board feet to tons into carbon. They can kind of understand that. When you start talking about a harvest deferral credit, well, I get glossed over quick. It's a little different to understand. So I have to tell them, you got to think outside the box. This is a different way of thinking things, but in a sense, they're going to keep the carbon stored on stump. They understand the phrase of storing the timber on stump, keep it growing. When they're ready to utilize it, it's there. Well, same thing for carbon. You can keep it stored in the forest, and it keeps growing in timber volume as well. So if we talk to them about if they decide not to cut some or all of their trees for this year, they can get a payment to store that carbon on a stump. It's going to grow a little bit more timber. They still get to do the deer hunting, duck hunting, whatever hunting, recreational activities you're using. They can start to understand that. So folks are pretty receptive about it. The model that NCX uses is a little difficult to understand how they convert carbon into harvest deferral credits and back and forth. But with better data, they'll have better information. So I'm going to keep feeding NCX and anybody else that wants to information from real life inventories of these forests to help better the model so it can be verified and to get people credit for the carbon that they actually have. One of the things on NCX, I don't work for NCX. It's just a company that I use as a tool. but I like the way they set the value of the carbon. They do it by market. It's through a bidding process. So landowners can bid on it, what it's worth it to them, and see if they can get theirs bought. So that worked out pretty good. And they've got a way that they elevate the rates that's really equitable. And that's a point I can convince landowners of pretty easily. The dollars, turns out it's about like a honey lease. So if a landowner is getting a honey lease, and most of them have been getting it for 20, 40 years, they know what that's like. And now they can get another payment pretty close to, somewhat close to that. They can relate to that. That's money helps them operate that land. Now, I'm talking about a normal honey lease. I'm not talking about these crazy duck hunters. You know, when they're paying $10,000, $15,000 an acre for the worst swamp in the county, you can't compete with that. They've got more pocket change than we can imagine. But for ordinary family and hunting club landowners, you know, $3, $5, $6, $10, $12, $20 an acre, they can really relate to that. And if they see a potential to get that income each year, they're going to be buying into it. And just a little bit I've been doing, I've got landowners now under contract to get nearly $500,000. That's money in their pockets they didn't even know they could get. So you know how happy I am to tell them about it? It makes it pretty easy to do. So it's a great program, and the native state's got a great one coming on. And I'm sure there's going to be more. We're going to keep evaluating them. But it's something as you deal with landowners, here's an income opportunity. It helps you open the door to sit at their table and talk about the conservation programs. These programs keep it as forest. That's the first thing. It's not turning it into a paid parking lot. It's helping people keep it into a forest. So use information about these programs as you deal with the landowners, see how it integrates with the programs you administer, and let them know there's more information about it. They can get with Tim, they can get with me, they can get with a lot of folks and learn about it and see how it might apply for them. But I think it's a great thing that's come along. It's high time. We heard about carbon 10 years ago. Now it's getting real. It's available for landowners. So thanks for having me. And I've learned a lot today.